all right, we're going to ban alcohol. And it's like,
Yeah, it's like, good luck with that.
but back then, it was legal to distill in your own home. It's not legal anymore. So you can't actually legally distill without a license past like a certain volume. And even then, you're only allowed to distill water, not alcohol, without a license in the US, which is wild. So
I mean, I was looking into like the homebrew laws and stuff like that, and like it wasn't until 1970 something, like Jimmy Carter was the one who legalized homebrewing, and after that, then homebrewers finally like exploded. Like people started opening up breweries and stuff, but it wasn't until Jimmy Carter repealed the Homebrewing Act that. So that's why craft beer like didn't really take off until the late 70s. So like whiskey has a way more interesting history than American whiskey has a way more interesting history than American craft beer. But granted, worldwide beer has a very interesting.
oh yeah,
Like it's interesting.
Crap. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would, because you have to make beer to make whiskey. Hey, dude, it's written by the same guy that wrote.
Tasting
He wrote the
whiskey.
same book. That's the same guy.
Randy Mosher.
Oh no, this is Luke Bryson. What?
Oh,
He wrote a beer one too. This guy wrote a beer one too, because he was a diehard beer guy who wrote for. Yeah, he was a diehard beer guy at first, and then discovered whiskey. After he was like, "Wait, you have to make beer to make whiskey? What the fuck does that mean?" And
I
then
know
like,
that. I didn't know that until we went to Rabbit Hole, and I was like, "Wait a minute! You just make beer, and then instead of fermenting it, you just distill it."
exactly.
Who knew?
It's wild. And my thing too is like, I don't know if anyone's done it yet. I wonder if I've always thought, I was like, can you just ferment it and make actual beer and then distill real beer and see what happens? Like, I'm sure you can. I don't know what to do, but like, I know, do I have one of those? I might have drank all that one. There are several whiskeys, like Jameson's really well known for it. They make Guinness aged. Oh yeah. Oh, this one. No, that's a 16. That's the same bottle. This one. Yeah. So like it's aged in a Guinness barrel, but I don't know. I also know there are some so like this Lagavulin,
Yeah.
right? The Offerman edition is aged in Guinness barrels, which is weird because it honestly doesn't add that much. And I think it's because they only put them in for like 4 months, which is not long enough. But still, like, there are a few whiskeys nowadays. What they actually do is they not only age the whiskey in like a beer barrel, so like an IPA barrel or a stout barrel, whatever, but they actually add hops to the mash bill. So there are a few that actually have like real beer mash bills that they actually distill from, and it tastes like distilled beer. It's pretty wild.
Interesting.
I'd have to find one.
I was just checking my Untapped app, the one where I keep track of all the beers and stuff that I've had. I've never checked in a Guinness. So I've had Guinness and I've never really liked it, but I've never actually like sat down and had a Guinness with the sole purpose of like trying a Guinness. So,
all right, well then, guess what? I'm gonna grab my Guinness, and then we can, if you want to do like a mock run through, and like we can actually taste it and walk it through with each other, we can totally do that.
Yeah.
So you got the cool guy bottles. Well, guess what? I have the cool guy cans.
Nice.
They have little like nitrogen balls inside them that like add nitrogen to the beer. Yeah. So like can you hear it rattling?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I think
not
I can hear it in this too.
Is there one in there?
It says nitrogenated for smoothness. I don't know.
Yeah. So when I pop this, you can hear it squeal. And that's like, there's a little nitrogen ball. Ah! There's a little nitrogen ball in here that does that. All right. So when you're pouring the beer, are we pouring it sideways like this?
I'm just pouring it how I naturally do, like just a like whatever. I pour all my beers pretty much the exact same. I know there's different pour techniques for certain beers and whatnot. So
Yeah, I see. That's the thing is I'm going to be asking lots of questions because
yeah,
I don't know anything about beer, and it is entirely on purpose. And it's and it's because I've grown to love beer. Like I
yeah.
have triple IPAs in my fridge right now. Like I will drink any beer you put in front of me. However, I don't know anything about it because like I know enough about whiskey. I was like, nah, if I have a question on beer, I'm just gonna ask Carl. I don't need to know
That works.
anything.
I mean,
don't
I
need to
know
anything.
enough to have a conversation and sound smart, but I'm not that smart on beer. Like I know the basics. I did how many levels does the whiskey sommelier have? 5?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 of them are open right now. 2 or 4 and 5 they're working on. I don't know if they're even ever going to really release them because 4 is how to distill and 5 is how to open a distillery. So
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to work or what that's going to look like, but like level 1 is just basic, right? Level 2, and it's like covers all the history, of whiskey, like every type of whiskey, all that kind of stuff. Then level 2 is bourbons and American whiskeys, so it's going to be the one I absolutely hate the most, and then it's like I hate bourbons and American whiskey, and then because most of the time they're boring. And
Yep.
then the last one is international whiskey, Scotch whiskey and international whiskey.
Gotcha.
But on that third level, it's like level 2, they're like, okay, you need to be able to tell the difference between like a rye, an American single malt, and a bourbon. It's like, okay, that can be easy, it can be really difficult too, but like I can pull that, like if I pull the Michter's American whiskey, Michter's bourbon, and Michter's rye, good luck. They're so similar. It's so difficult to tell apart. But
Would you be able to, so like if you were given, say you were given a single malt scotch and
Yeah.
you were given an American single malt scotch, an Irish single malt scotch, a Scottish single malt scotch, and like a Japanese single malt scotch,
Mhm.
would you be able to tell the difference between all 4?
To a certain extent.
Okay.
So each of them are single malts. A single malt scotch is only exclusive to Scotland. So that's like a single malt scotch. Scotch in the name means it is from Scotland.
Okay.
You have a single
So
malt.
okay, then single malt whiskey, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, single malt whiskey. So yeah, I have like the Westward American single malt, right, in this tiny bottle, and it's very strange, and it tastes like a rye whiskey, which is very confusing, and I don't understand. But so there's that one. There's like this Texas single malt. There's another Texas single malt. And most of the time, like with these, if they're from specific states, oddly enough, super easy to tell. So like
Yeah.
from Texas, you can tell because it tastes like freaking wood and like some berries. And you're like, wow, that's a very complex, it's hurting me, but it's complex. That's neat. So it tends to be really intense. But if I put like this, I actually really like these guys' whiskey too. If I put like the Stranahan's Blue Peak, so like color wise, it's not very dark. On top of that, it's a single malt, and it's a true single malt. And then if I put it up against like this Auchentoshan, right? So color-wise, I'm not getting any help.
Yeah.
Color same. And then on top of that, they have pretty similar profiles. So like American single malt to Scottish, I would say is pretty difficult to tell apart in some cases. Not all, but in most cases, I would say it's pretty difficult. If you're talking Japanese, super easy to tell it's Japanese. And it's because Japanese whiskey is just very light and delicate. Most Scottish whiskey has
Same with their beer. Their beer is just super light, crisp, not a ton of flavor. It just sort of tastes like white bread, wheat, like white cracker. Like it's just super basic.
Huh. Oh, knocking bottles over. Yeah, so that's interesting because, and I think I talked about this once on a video or whatever, and that's like the fact that Japanese whiskey palate-wise, it's the palate of the region dictates the palate of the alcohol that they usually have. So like if you have sake, it's actually pretty light and refreshing, or it might be mildly sweet or mildly earthy, but it's never a like, oh my gosh, like overwhelming, super intense, right? Because their entire palate is based on something light and fresh, and that would be fish, right? Fish and vegetables, and rice, which are not super intense flavors. Whereas when you come to the US, where we eat Big Macs and have Coca-Cola, we drink this stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It tends to be super bold and really intense. So I think that's definitely like a huge part of it, is the fact like the palate just plays into it massively. So yeah, Japanese is pretty easy to tell. American whiskeys and Scottish whiskey can be almost impossible sometimes. Most of the time it's not terrible, but sometimes you're just like, yeah, I had no idea. This could be America. This could be, last time I think I had this guy, and I was like, I don't know where that's from. I was like, I don't know if it's Scotland or the US. It's one of the two.
I mean, that's like, that's where it gets challenging with wines, because it's like, okay, here's a Merlot. It's like, oh, well, I don't know where this is from. It could be Napa Valley. It could be from Italy. It could be from Portugal. Like, who knows where it's from? But it's like the wine sommeliers. Like Lauren and I watched a documentary on like wine sommeliers, and they were just like, the grape is from this, like this year. This was a bad year. This is like it. And I'm just like, wow, that's a little over my head. And I'm just like, anyway, here, cheers.
Cheers, my guy.
That's good.
Man, my favorite beer in the world. Love
Interesting.
Guinness.
No, that's interesting that Guinness is your favorite beer. It's got kind of like a, okay, so whenever we do this, before we start talking about it, do you want to, like, how do you do your, because there's different ways to smell beer, there's different ways to smell whiskey, there's different ways, like, usually whenever you're looking at a beer, you're looking at the color, you're looking at the head, how much head, so it's taste, smell, mouthfeel, and taste, aroma, mouthfeel. Like, that's pretty much what you're looking for. And then like the flavors that you're getting are salty, sweet, bitter, sour, umami. Those are your 5 flavors. And then they added a 5th one, which is fat, because you can actually, apparently with like the mouth receptors and everything and the taste buds, you can taste fat.
Absolutely.
So that's how, whenever, like, what I've learned from what little, like, I got my level 1. I have my certified beer server, so I know a little bit more than the average beer drinker about beer. But that doesn't make me smart. I just remember these little facts and stuff like that.
Right.
So
this is my favorite part.
You get the mustache. So like, I guess, like, just to practice, like, let's talk about like smell.
Yeah.
So like how to go in for a smell on this is like, obviously swirl it. Do you swirl your whiskey?
No, so whiskey we don't. So you can. That's the thing. Is like, we normally, if you want to look at the legs, yes, but it's not really. It can help your smell. It depends on the glass. So sometimes you'll see us do this, and then we lift it up, and then we can look at the legs, and that tells us how much oil or what's coming out of it in terms of its viscosity. And I can tell it's chemically like what's kind of going on. It can help enhance smell. It can actually like make it more intense because it's not sitting down in the bowl, so you have to be careful. But most of the time we actually just like, you pour it in and then you can smell it. It's just fun.
Interesting.
So yeah, for beer, like, I didn't know you swirled beer. I have no idea how to properly smell or taste beer at all.
Mm-hmm. So then, all right. So then I'll go through some of the things, and like, obviously, disclaimer, I'm not an expert, but this is like, I've watched a lot of people taste beer. I've been to a lot of breweries. I've been to a lot of tastings, whatever. So obviously, like, we did the pour, so the 45-degree pour, and then as it comes to a close, you like tilt it upright. Then usually the first thing that you do, similar with wine, like, you swirl it, because that releases the carbon dioxide, like the bubbles burst basically, which releases the aroma. So like, you can be kind of like vicious with it, not like, so swirling it. And then there's different, I watched the video on this, there's a bunch of different smelling ways to smell. So I notice in your videos, you keep your mouth open.
Yep, that's a whiskey thing.
Which you should. It's a beer thing. It's a wine thing. I notice a lot of people, whenever they smell beer, they keep their mouth closed. Beer is not super alcoholic, so it's not going to burn your taste buds and your taste buds and your nasal passages. Like if I stick my nose in rabbit hole, I keep my mouth closed, it's going to be holy shit alcohol. But this, like, you can keep your mouth closed, you can keep it open. It really doesn't matter. I usually keep my mouth open just out of habit. So smelling it, and it's like, okay, what do I get off of this? Okay, I'm getting coffee. I'm getting like roastiness. I'm getting like
I get milk chocolate, dark chocolate, like not milk and dark. I'd say those semi-sweet chocolate, like little chips that you put in chocolate cookies, like, or chocolate chip.
semi-sweet morsels.
Yeah, that's it. That's dead on.
Yeah.
So definitely coffee.
So for smelling, because I know that you do one nose and the other nose. So for this, there's different ways you can smell. There's the sniffing the method. So you go in, you go for like sniff, sniff, sniff. You just kind of put your nose in and go, like, you kind of short, quick sniffs.
Okay.
And then there's the long sniff where you just stick your nose in, real deep inhale.
Okay.
And then I've seen some people, they'll swirl their beer and then they'll cover it and then they'll sniff it. That kind of traps the aroma even more.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then the funny one, which I think is dumb, but it's still a method. They call it the drive-by.
Yeah.
So they literally go like this. And they call it the drive-by. And it's like, okay, like you're picking up on little subtleties. So that's like for me personally, like if I crack open a beer, I've never had, like even beer I have had before, I just swirl it, I give it a sniff, and I'm like, okay, I'm picking up this, maybe going for a second sniff, and then I'm just excited to drink the damn beer. Like,
yeah, I want to get to the fun part.
Exactly. It's like coffee. It's like I've started drinking a lot of cold brew. I've stopped drinking Monsters and soda and sugary drinks. Like, I've stopped drinking that stuff completely. And I pretty much drink water, beer, wine, liquor, and cold brew. And like, I don't really like drinking occasionally I'll get like a sugary drink or something like that, like a coffee, like a Frappuccino type, whatever. But most of the time it's like, I want my coffee to just be cold brew, coffee, and water. That's it. And like, that's what I get in this. I get a lot of coffee notes, a lot of like roastiness, a lot of maltiness. And I mean, honestly, like, I like telling stories with beer. I like imagining myself somewhere, like drinking this beer. And like this beer, I'm imagining myself in like a corner booth, wintertime, a like hot pastrami and Swiss sandwich on rye bread is sitting in front of me, and I'm drinking this and just eating a hot pastrami Swiss sandwich. Like that to me is this beer. Like, that's where this beer takes me, because I find it just, I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer. I like to talk about, I just like to make stories with beer. So like, it makes me kind of sad whenever I find a beer, like, and it's just like, it's got a cool label, got cool pictures, but then it tells me nothing about the beer. It doesn't tell me a story. So I'm like, well, cool, I'll make up my own story then. But like, I found this one. Do you remember when we were in New Hampshire and we went to Harpoon?
Yeah.
And Clown Shoes is the craft brewery that Harpoon bought. So Clown Shoes, they make this beer. It's called Don't Fear the Blender. And it's a blended milkshake IPA, and it has like a Grim Reaper on the front with like holding a blender. So like, it's a really cool picture. Like, it's really cool. And then it even has like a little story, and like, it tells the story. It's like, I've had thousands of beers, yet I remember that one more so than hundreds of others because it told a fun story. Like, beer tells a story. Whiskey tells a story. Everything tells a story. Everything tells experiences. And that's why this shit is so fun. Because it's like, I mean, I can just drink a beer. I can just come home, drink whatever, drink Corona. Like, I don't care. I don't drink that much. I like to drink different things. I like to experience different beers and have fun with it. So that's why it probably takes you months to finish a bottle, because you're like, ooh, a new bottle. Like, I want to try different things. It's like,
I have no desire to finish. Yeah,
exactly.
That's like my pours now are always a tasting pour. I never pour more than a tasting. if I want to drink, I oddly enough, I dump this in a horn and then I fill it to the brim with mead. So Guinness and mead. I put those two together, and that's if I'm like, yeah, let's fucking party.
Hell yeah.
That's my go-to drink. Yeah, because whiskey, I mean, technically now it is work. But yeah, that's like I've had this Swift since 2017. This is from 2017. 4 years. Now, I hate this stuff. This stuff is awful. Oh my God, do I hate this whiskey?
Hopefully they're not watching. Hopefully they never watch your stuff.
If you eat corn or malted grain and then throw it up,
oh,
kind of sour like bile and like pre-digested food with maltiness. And I was like, absolutely. I do offer this to every tasting I give though. I'm like, hey, does anybody? It's a Texas whiskey. It's pretty wild, and I try to give it away. And it's also like not clear, and it's at 44%. So they like the decisions they made are weird. So like whiskey is clear over 46%. It just is if you add water to
coloring to it.
Nope. It's pure. It's just what it is. But when it gets cloudy, once you drop below a certain percentage and add water, well, most of the time, if you're going to drop it below 46, you chill filter it. You don't have to, but a lot of people do because that gets rid of this weird kind of cloudy look to it that makes the whiskey look like it's expired. And it's to get rid of some of the particulates. Well, they didn't do that. They're just like, nah, it's 44%. We're leaving it the way it is. And so when people pick this up and look at it, they're like, is the whiskey okay? And that was one of the first things I thought when I picked up a bottle. So like when I bought it originally, I liked the label and I was just like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. It's cloudy though. Let me look up what's going on. And they were like, oh no, cloudiness is totally normal. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why did they choose to do this? And like, there are a lot of the reviews for it say exactly what I said about the taste. And then on top of that, they also go, why would you not just bump it up 2%? And like, just keep it clear. There's no, like, don't get me wrong, proof absolutely affects flavor. But why? Especially when it tastes the way it does. It doesn't make sense. So that's a weird bottle. Yeah, it's really interesting. And like, I find the whole beer thing super interesting too. Cause like, I don't know how to smell this crap. I just now like.
It's so similar to whiskey though.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So you were like, oh, the swirl thing. I was like, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then like smelling, I was like, oh, it's just, I smell it like whiskey. So that's neat. But I get exactly what you do. So that's interesting. So like, my thing is I already poured the bourbon. My question is when you smell whiskey, do you do the same thing and keep your mouth open and just do all that stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So I swirl it just by habit. I don't know if swirling it really does much, but I swirl it. And then I usually I used to whenever I didn't know anything, I would like put my nose in it and I'd be like, oh God. But then I'm like, okay, I keep like maybe a couple inches away, but yeah, whatever I'm smelling. So
this is in one day between 6 people.
Wow.
And then, but to be fair, I also bought this, which is this is a natural color gin. So this gin is purple. And it's called Empress Gin. And one of the botanicals in it is butterfly pea blossoms. And so it adds a really floral flavor to it, but it also gives it that kind of sapphire color. Yeah, this was last night between the 6. Yeah, we drank that gin's real good. But yeah, that's funny. You said that your brother drank the whole freaking thing. I find this really interesting. So it doesn't surprise me. Do you like this? Let me ask that question first.
I do. Oddly enough, it reminds me of a reposado tequila. I know that makes no sense, but it does. It reminds me of like a very spicy, it reminds me of like a spiced caramel, like tequila, because I really enjoy tequila. Like I enjoy sipping on tequila, but also like I've started sipping on like like flavored whiskeys, but not like I like that screwball stuff, but granted that shit's like it's not
It's good.
really, it's
No, it's
delicious.
delicious. It's
It tastes
delicious.
like a liquid peanut butter cup. Like let's be
Yeah,
real.
exactly.
It tastes
Oh yeah,
amazing.
no, it's delicious. You can
But no.
add that with a Guinness and it's very good.
I do like this because I'm a bourbon, like I like the sweeter stuff. I've tried your peated stuff. I've tried the smoky, boggy,
Yeah, no.
Isle, like that stuff. And I'm just like, oh God. It's like, okay, you've had an IPA before. Imagine never having beer. And I give you a double IPA and you drink it and you're just like, what did I just put in my mouth?
Yeah, no, it's
That was
super
the
bitter
experience
and
that-
sour
That was
and
the experience that I
astringent,
had.
and the mouth
When
feels
you
weird on
peated whiskey.
IPAs, and
Yeah.
they kind of burn your mouth too. It's very strange.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's super bitter, and that's why I like it. Like it's funny. I've probably a year ago, I would never like drink this on purpose. Like I'm not a big stout fan, but like over the last like year and a half, 2 years, because when Lauren and I moved to San Diego, I like drank IPAs. Give me an IPA, give me a pale ale. Like I love that stuff. I love the bitter, I love the crispness. Now I'm just like, I want to try everything. Like I've started drinking everything. Like I brought home like a blueberry banana smoothie sour a couple weeks ago.
That sounds amazing.
Exactly. Like it's fun. It's different. There was one, like it was actually like thick. It looked like a milkshake. Like it was really interesting. Like it's not something that I would go to a bar and be like, oh yeah, give me a pint of that. But like I just like trying different things. And also, whenever you do drink beer, it's better to pour it into a glass. I don't know if you ever just open up a can or open up a bottle and drink it out of the bottle.
I try not. I usually drink it out of the bottle. If it's in a bottle, I normally drink it out of the bottle. If it's in a can, no way. I want it to come out of something glass. So I always put it in a glass if it comes out of a can. But I did not know even out of a bottle, huh?
Well, so there's nothing wrong with drinking out of a can. There's nothing wrong with drinking out of a bottle. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But if you are looking for the optimal beer tasting and aroma experience from the beer, how the brewer wanted you to taste and smell that beer, it is best to pour it into a glass because that allows the most surface area for the beer to release the aromas. Because most of the time, like if you're stuffed up, you can't taste anything. That's why all the taste we think is coming from our mouths. It's coming from the aromas. It's coming from the aromas and what we're smelling and what's going into our, like what's going through our nasal passages. So if you crack open a can and you drink it, your nose doesn't get to work. Like your nose isn't really working all that much. Like you're getting the taste. You're like, oh, this tastes good. But if you pour it into a glass, you're like, oh, wow. Like I'm smelling it. I'm experiencing it more. It's it's still beer at the end of the day. Drink beer however the hell you want to drink beer. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I still crack open beers and drink out of the can. I don't care. Like, but if you want to experience the true like aroma and everything of it, you should pour it into a glass because it allows the beer to breathe.
Right.
So it's especially like whenever you're talking about whiskey, it's like leave it out in the air for like 10 minutes. The oxidation is going to make the flavor change.
Yeah, and it is changing a lot actually.
Yeah, I find it more harsh now.
Yeah, it harshed up for me, and then it kind of tapered and plateaued some, and then it got a little harsh again, and now it's just kind of riding. I haven't even tasted it yet.
I just tasted it, and it's like I'm still averse to whiskey and to like spirits in general, where it's just like I drink it and I'm like, oh, burn. Like, but it's toning
Totally
down
normal.
a lot. Yeah, and like I know that you've had so many, so
Me,
like it burned you too.
Yeah, this one burns me too. I actually, so it's funny. Rabbit Hole, their actual like this bourbon, I actually don't really like it. I actually don't think it's very good, which is weird because if you look up their mash bill for this bourbon and like what they're doing and stuff, it's awesome. I think they're doing a great job making. They're very transparent, but flavor, what I don't know how this won some World Spirits Competition gold. I don't know because I would rather have a glass of the Noble Oak, right? This new guy that I got, right? I'd much rather have this. Way would much. It's way more unique, has more flavor, far more interesting, easier to drink in my opinion. It's just not like, this feels super basic to me. Even for their mash bill being very diverse. So what they're doing is they do like 70% corn, which actually isn't that high of a percentage for corn for a bourbon. Then they do malted barley, malted honey barley, and then what's the last one? They do another malt. And it's like some other type of barley that they end up malting as well. So it's four types of like, it's three types of barley and one type of corn. And barley normally gives this kind of like grain funk and really sweet. And then corn is sweet too. So
corn's really sweet.
I don't like, for what it is, and maybe it's because it's 3 years old. It's not very old. It's about 3.5, and maybe that's why. But like, I think the nose is great. I think it smells really good. It's on their website that they tell you how old it is.
Well, it says on the back, matured over 3 years in new charred American oak barrels. And I totally get the oak. Like, I get the oak.
Yep, for sure.
Like, I get the charriness, but it's almost like burnt sugar. Like, I get like burnt bitter sugar is what I'm getting from this. And
if
then
you
like
look on the left side of the bottle, it tells you exactly what's in it.
At the bottom of the bottle?
Left side. Left, like this side.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it actually tells you what's in it. So it's actually malted
wheat, malted barley, honey. Okay, yeah. So you were right about the honey.
Yeah, so and then it's, it's aged and handcrafted cask by Kelvin Cooperage. Kelvin is one of the greatest cooperages in U.S. history. They've been around for like 100 years. But I just don't understand, like, because to me, this is, like, there are plenty of other bourbons I'd rather have.
It's simple. It's not complex. It's not like, oh, I'm getting, like, listening to some of your whiskey reviews, it's not like, oh, I'm getting this and this and this and this. It's basically like, okay, I get this, and then it's done. Like, I don't really get much on the back end. Like, after having drank it and then stop drinking it, I don't get much on the back end. But if you go back to the Guinness then tastes like, I'm getting like chocolate marshmallows, like, from the Guinness, because of how, like, just how in your face the whiskey is. I'm getting like chocolate marshmallows.
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely with the chocolate. But that makes it, wow.
Like, it makes the beer better.
I'd rather have the Guinness at this point. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. I think what they're doing, what they're trying to do, the fact they're independent, like all this stuff, phenomenal. I love Rabbit Hole's mission, their goal, their legacy, their story. Phenomenal.
Who bought them?
I don't know. I haven't actually looked that up.
Okay.
But like, I love everything about Rabbit Hole. Is even spirit-wise, love everything they have, except for this. Their Pedro Jimenez, like their sherry aged one, so good, blows my mind. Adore that whiskey, hand over foot, love it. Their gin, holy crap, I love this stuff.
Yeah,
all right.
No, I remember when we went to that distillery, you, Josh, and I, when we went there, I remember their gin was awesome. I hated their rye. I hated the rye because that's nothing against their rye. It's against me. I'm not a big rye fan. I don't even like rye IPAs. Like, I'm not a big fan of rye. It's a little too punchy in the mouth, a little bit too much.
Yep, totally get that. Absolutely. Yeah. So
I love their bourbons though. I thought, whenever I found Rabbit Hole at Total Wine out here in Arizona, I was like, fuck yeah, like, I'm gonna get some of that because I like that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think you really nailed it earlier when you said, like, it's basic and straight through. A lot of people actually said, they were like, if you're a whiskey, like, oh, I taste whiskey and blah, 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 you're going to taste this and, all right, I'm going to put it in a cocktail or throw it on ice. Or what I could do is, if I'm having a bunch of friends over and they're not whiskey drinkers, I'll just give them this.
Yeah.
Because this would work every time. Like, I can't think of somebody who, even if, like, you are a beer drinker, which means you hit, like, I don't know how high percentage beer can go, but I did see one that was like 33% at one point in a Total Wine. And I was like, I am terrified of that and will not be touching that, but that's neat.
I think the highest alcohol beer I've personally ever had was like a 14%.
14.
And it tastes like, it almost becomes like viscous, where it's almost like syrupy and it's just very alcoholish. Like, it's not pleasant. Like it's not pleasant to me at least. Like but granted, I had like an 11.3 Belgian quadruple a couple weeks ago, and it was incredible. It went down so smooth. It was delicious, but I literally had like a tasting of it. I only had a taster of it. And after just the taster, I was like, okay, I feel something.
Right.
Like that's what it does. That's why it's like the beers, but like I don't really care for like the triples and whatnot that are higher in alcohol. Yes, they taste amazing. If I'm just gonna sip on one, I'm like awesome. But if I'm like out at a bar or like at a party or something like that, I'm like, I don't want to drink a 9%, 10%. Like I want to drink like my sweet spot, honestly, is like 4.5 to 6.5. Because there you can get awesome pilsners, lagers, pale ales. You can get some awesome beers in between that range, and you can have 4, 5, 6 and be fine.
Right. Yeah, that's something I've noticed too, is like depending on, because beer for me, because like, I mean, yeah, we live together, right? You had a beer drawer. I didn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I had my whiskey cabinet, and you didn't touch that.
I'm so proud of you though, because now you're drinking beer.
Yeah, I know, right? I did. And it's funny. Guinness is what got me. I was like, I had a Guinness at some point. I was like, I don't know. Everyone hypes it up. I'm just gonna have one, and I had one, and I was like, dude, this reminded me of Woodford Reserve bourbon because of the chocolate notes and the coffee notes and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah, that's that. I like that. And then I drank a lot of it, and now, and I was like, okay, well, and you know, family business beer company. Yes, I do it for the supernatural love. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
That is part of it. I love supernatural. So when I went out there, I was like, I gotta go, and I have to be willing to try beer. So
Yeah.
out there, and surprisingly enough, like I'd been drinking Guinness pretty regularly up until that point. And then I was like, okay, I want their stout is called a Grackle, and
Okay.
it's like so coffee heavy and like peanut butter. It is so good though. It is bitter as the day is long. Like dark, like if you like Black Rifle Coffee Company, caffeinated as fuck, black, that's it. Like in that glass. And so I was like, oh man, I actually really like this. This is like right up Main Street for me. I really love this. I was like, well then what else do they have? And I tried like 6 different ones from them. I couldn't drive, but I kept trying a bunch. And so it turned out like I went there and I was like, okay, I liked this. I didn't like this. I liked it. So I liked the Hefeweizen. I liked one of their, oddly enough, like their IPA. I didn't like the sour because it was sour and that was weird for me.
Those are interesting. They're growing on me. The sours and they're growing on me.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I just tried them and I was like, wow. Turns out actually there are some beers out there. So I'll just stick with those. And as I've like stuck with those, I'm like, you know what? That's got a weird label on it. And I am a diehard sucker for marketing. Oh my gosh. I will. If you have a cool looking bot, done. Easy.
Yep.
Yeah. I am totally the judge a book by its cover. Now, there's some whiskeys where I'm like, I mean, you say it's 4 years old, but that's like clear. I don't know what you're doing. That's kind of weird. So yeah, sometimes I'm cautious, but for the most part, like I have in the fridge right now a bunch of Sweetwaters, and like it's Sweetwater, and it's a. I think
You're
it's
talking my dad's language. My dad loves Sweetwater. They're I think, don't they have a 420 IPA?
Yeah, I had one a couple days ago, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, Sweetwater, good, really good beer. But anyway, it's like Guinness is like I was looking on Untapped. Guinness has been checked in on Untapped about 750,000 times, like over 750,000 times.
Holy crap.
Like most beers, like whenever I check them in, it's like, oh, this beer's been checked in like 2,000 times. Like that's a good beer. Or like 100 times. Like I checked in a beer the other day and it was like, this beer's been checked in 10 times. It's like, oh wow, like that's like a brand new, like there's so many beers out there that you can try. And it's so nice to just try different things because people put time and effort into making these things.
Yep.
Like how much time and effort goes into making this bottle, the label,
3 years,
the contents of it. Like so much work and effort goes in that it's just like, yeah, I mean, I can go and buy pack a Bud Light, shotgun a couple, jump in the pool, and have a grand old time. But it's like, okay, like cool. But at the same time, I don't like the people who are like, I hate this beer. It's like, okay, that's fine. You don't like it. That's totally fine. That doesn't make it a bad beer. Like I would not call Bud Light. Bud Light is not a bad beer. It's just preference. It's like when it's like at the competitions, like the whiskey competitions or the beer competitions. It's like, it's so funny because people will be like, how the hell did this win gold?
Yeah,
It's
I don't
like,
know. I don't understand how this won gold, but apparently
Right.
some judges had a preference, and this was their preference. So cool.
And that's why it's
for
so
me,
funny. You take it with a grain of salt. It's all preference. It's just like there are people out there who all they will drink is Bud Light. They think everything else sucks except Bud Light. It's like, you know what? More power to you, dude. Like that's awesome. So it's just like, but me, I can't see myself coming. Nice.
Evan Williams, my dude. This bottle, $23.
Hell yeah.
Much I love Evan Williams.
Oh, I
It's
know.
one of my favorite whiskeys to drink, and it's $23 a bottle. Like, I don't care. It's not about cost or whatever. It's preference, like you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't like, and that's the thing is like this Aaron. It's single malt. I don't even know what is an Amarone cask finish. That must be a type of wine that I don't know. Amarone cask finish. Okay, neat. Can't stand this at all. Tastes like cherry cough syrup. Just so bitter cherry. And yeah, not my thing. However, if you look at the reviews for this whiskey, I'm
People
like
love
the
it, probably.
only person that doesn't like it.
And
People
that's
love it.
okay.
Yeah, it's just like bro, drink whatever you want. Like if you like it, drink it. I am more than happy to, and that's even at my tastings and stuff. That's why I pick the three I pick most of the time. I pick some big name bourbon, and depending on my audience, maybe I'll pick something sweeter or spicier. I pick a single malt Scotch. Most of the time it's Glenlivet 12 or Glenfiddich 12. And because it's fresh, it's sweet, it's light, it's malty, and it shows off like the single malt portion of everything. And then for my third whiskey, it's an Irish whiskey, and that's A, because I can tell the story, but B, because everybody knows who this is.
Yeah.
And the cool part is it deserves to be known. It deserves the reputation it has because it saved the Irish whiskey industry from collapsing into nothing.
Oh, I know. Listening to your video was so fun because it was just like, wow, I didn't know that. Like, that's
Jameson
really cool.
Jameson is the only reason Irish whiskey still exists, which is wild. And the fact that, man, I didn't even know this before I did research for that video. The fact that he started distilling because his wife's dad is Haig. And Haig, this is Haig Club. You ready? The distillery was established in Blending House, 1627. Yeah. Single grain Scotch whiskey, 1627. So yeah, so this guy started distilling just because his father-in-law was a distiller. And then right, like 400 years ago or 300 years ago, and they were like, oh yeah, it turns out it's great. Okay, that's cool. Well, Irish whiskey's all of a sudden about to collapse. What do? I don't know. Pick that guy who randomly started distilling because his wife was like, yeah, Dad does it. You should do it too. And he was like, yeah, right. I'm not even Irish. I'm Scottish, but fuck it. And ends up distilling, and then it's Irish whiskey. And you're just like, what is happening?
And then
so it's weird.
And then fast forward 400 years and we have proper 12 being sold for hundreds of millions of dollars because Conor McGregor is a fucking global icon. Like,
I know, right?
I know, like if it wasn't for Jameson, you don't have Conor McGregor's whiskey.
100%. Yeah,
So
no, that's
that?
totally the thing. Yeah, because his entire goal, and he doesn't say it, but he subtly hints at the fact that he's like, I'm gonna knock Jameson off the top. He's like, this was made for one reason alone, to kick Jameson off the top spot. And what's funny is, unfortunately, it's not as good as Jameson.
I've never had it.
I'll buy when we're at your place. I'll buy a bottle of Jameson and a bottle of Proper 12. And I won't tell anybody what it is, and we'll do a taste off because I know what my preference is.
Comes to whenever it comes to people saying, oh, it's a bad beer, or oh, it's a bad whiskey. It's like, no, bad beer doesn't exist. Bad does not exist. The only reason it would be bad is if it was like infected with bacteria or something like that, or like the beer actually went bad. But like, if you don't like it because you don't like how it tastes, it's like, okay, fair enough. Like that is your preference. There is millions of other beers out there. There's millions of other whiskeys out there. Go have something that you like. And yeah, and that's why I like this so much, because it's like there's so many different things to try. Like that's why I can't bring myself to, like, I don't buy 6-packs. I barely will buy a 4-pack. Like it's very rare that I buy a beer where it's like, oh, I have multiples of that beer. Like I love going to the local bottle shop and being like, oh, cool, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take this and build my own 4 to 6-pack, come home, have a variety of beers and be like, cool, I liked that one. I didn't like that one so much. That one was good. I got this from this one. And like, it allows me to taste different beers. And I can, rather than buying a 6-pack and supporting one brewery, I can buy 6 different beers and support 6 different breweries. So
yeah, that's one thing I found interesting, is that a lot of whiskey companies outside of like Dewar's, right? By the way, this is fantastic. This is
it
absolutely ridiculously good, which is hilarious because I do not like Dewar's traditionally. It's a blended Scotch. It's been around for friggin' forever, 1846. But this is the illegal smooth. I don't know why it would be illegal, but it's called illegal smooth. Oh my gosh, that might be why. That would be a terrible reason. But it's aged in mezcal casks. And yeah, and I like mezcal. I actually have some. It's one of my favorite. Like if I drink tequila, it's usually mezcal, because I think mezcal is a derivative of tequila. Yes. If I remember right. So I really like mezcal because it's smoky, because they roast the agave most of the time, right? Yeah. So they roast the agave. So I really like it. It actually makes this really sweet. It does the opposite. So it's fantastic, and it's $25.
Because tequila, you got Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo. I don't remember what Blanco stands for. Blanco, like clear or something like that.
Clear, and it can be aged, but then they can filter out the color.
Yeah, usually it's aged like a year, but then Reposado is usually like 3-ish years because that's rested, and then Añejo is aged, which is like 4+ years.
Interesting.
Usually, So honestly, if you were like, oh, I'm not a big fan of tequila, go find an Añejo and go to town, because you would like an Añejo. There you go.
And there's actually a lot of that gone. I really like like Don Julio Blanco, and it's probably because it's tied to like some super dope memories. The only good ones I have of Detroit, Michigan. No, that's not true. I have 2 good memories.
When you were working for my uncle?
Yeah. Well, he was great. I loved where I worked. Just the whole like, Detroit sucks. Yeah. Terrible. There were bullet holes in my window for my office. They were like, it's from the riots we have every once in a while. It's like, that doesn't make it okay, but all right. So this Don Julio Blanco, we had a department down, or like a warehouse down in Mexico. And when you went to Mexico, Don Julio was $8 a bottle. And it's in the US, it's like 50 or 40 or whatever. And so my roommate went down and got like 15 bottles and brought them all back with him.
Nice.
And so for like a week, and at the time it wasn't like when all 4 roommates were there, it was when it was just he and I. So like he and I would like watch movies and drink out of bottles of Don Julio. We would literally, here's a bottle. Awesome. I'm going to take a bottle, and then we would just pop the Don Julio and we just drink the tequila. So I have an affinity for Don Julio, and the Reposado, because I was like, oh, it means it's some sort of aged. So like whiskey's aged.
Rested.
I do. Yeah, it's really good. I enjoy that kind of stuff. But mezcal, because of the scotches and the smokiness. Yeah, I mean, I don't not even have any. Nope, it's right here. It's almost gone. Yeah, as you can tell, I like this one because I've only had this one for maybe a month. Maybe.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a mezcal reposado.
Oh, that'd be good.
It's aged in oak for 6 months.
That'd be pretty good.
It's really good.
talking about like how we were like, oh, like people like what they like. It's like, oh, if you like Bud Light, like, okay, drink Bud Light. Like, perfect example of that is my uncle. Oh, we're doing that.
You don't have
No,
to,
that's actually a great idea. That would be a fun concept for. I just licked the glass because, whatever. That would actually be.
We don't lose any on this freaking. I don't know what we are. Friendship. We don't lose any liquid. We preserve it all.
That would actually be kind of a fun concept. Like for our future videos, is if we pick the same things, and then we try one, try the other, and then we pour them together.
That would be awesome. I'm totally up for that.
Like, yeah, imagine pouring this like in an IPA. It'd be like, what? Like,
yeah. Oh, that could actually make it pretty wild. Yeah, I'm totally down. And that's the thing too, is if you want, when it comes to whiskeys and all that kind of stuff, do you have any Total Wines near you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I normally go to Total Wine, and because it kind of distributes, it's a little funky in it.
It's funky.
It's a little funky.
It's like bitter caramel chocolate, but like really badly burned.
Yeah, I didn't have enough in there, so I want to be able to taste it. So I'm just going to pour something.
I tasted it right away. No, I have to give it the Guinness though, because I'm at this much, and the head is still there. Like, the fact that this beer just continuously like regenerates its head, I find it to be very interesting, because most beers, like, you get down to here, your head's gone.
Is it a bad thing if the head disappears?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I was like, I don't. So the head is just, it's the carbonation holding on, or the nitrogenization. I'm an engineer. That is that.
No, so the head is usually from like oxidation, like that. So if you ever tapped a keg, and if the keg is like super warm, or if the keg is like, mainly it deals with like temperature. So if you tap a keg and it's like mainly foam coming out, the keg's not cold enough. Like the beer's not cold enough. So if it's too warm, it's going to be like this much beer with this much head. Like, so that's not a big deal. But some people, like, there are some beers where like you'll get about like this much head, or like maybe like an inch of head. But there are some beers out there that you'll get like 2-3 inches of head. And that's a good thing. Like, that's a good thing, because the head also, because it's a bunch of like little bubbles, you want a head because you smell it. You get those aromas, because if there's no head, if you pour a flat beer, it's not going to smell as good. It's not going to taste as good. That's why you want the beer to be at the right temperature, and you want it to be fresh. Because if it's too warm, then you're probably going to get too much head, and it's not going to taste good. But if it's ice cold, that's why, if you know, like, if you drink an ice cold beer, why do you think, like, okay, like Coors Light, for example, like, cold as the Rockies. It's like, they tell you to drink it cold. It's like the cold meter. Oh, your thing's blue. Drink it. It's cold. That's because you don't taste it. If it's so cold, you can't taste it. Oh. Because their beer tastes like shit, to be completely honest. But that's why, if you ever drink a warm Bud Light, it tastes awful.
Oh, it's terrible.
But if you drink an ice cold Bud Light, that's why we're like, if you go to a bar and the bartender, like, if you order a beer and they give you a chilled glass that they pull out of the freezer that is like ice cold, you can request to be like, hey, can I get a room temperature glass? Because that ice cold glass is going to ruin a ton of the flavor. It's going to ruin a ton of the flavor, where yes, you're going to get a cold, refreshing, delicious beer, but you're going to lose a lot of the aroma and a lot of the taste.
Okay.
Because the glass is so cold.
Gotcha. Yeah, whiskey's the same way. If it's super cold, you lose some of the flavor. Yeah, it's not like you have a head or anything to smell, or like to get bubbles off of the smell. But it is the same way in terms of, like, if you have a bad whiskey. So like Johnny Walker, White Walker is a great example of this. They had the same thing the Coors Light thing did. They're like, oh, you stick it in the freezer and then it like gets the blue eyes, and like that's how you know it's ready to drink. And I was like, that's weird, because you don't stick whiskey in the fridge. You never do that. Well, that's not true. You want, but it changes the flavor.
profile. Yeah, it changes the flavor profile.
Which, by the way, that whiskey tasted like vanilla and dirt, just straight up. Like you are, it's like good earth, like well tilled. You just nice little bit of dirt, yeah. And so I found that really interesting because I was like, why would you choose to remove some of your flavors? And then I tried it warm and went, yeah, I am gonna freeze this because it, even with the vanilla and dirt, at least it's better than metal and dirt with no vanilla. So they did that on purpose.
And that's why, like, with a lot of the beers where it's like, oh, I want it ice cold. It's like, well, that's fine. You can have an ice, like, are you kidding me? On a hot day, an ice cold Bud Light goes down incredibly. Like, I've drank Bud Light. I drink Bud Light. Honestly, we had Michelob a couple of weeks ago. Like, Lauren and her family came and we had some Michelobs. And I was like, this is damn good. Like, it was cold. But as soon as it got warm, as we were out in the pool, like, as soon as it got warm, I was like, this tastes like piss. Like, it's just not good.
Yeah, and that's really cool too. That's part of actually why I got into beer was after helping my parents, or a long day at the range, like if I'm out shooting or doing whatever, or if I've done lifting that day, if I've done anything that's like hot and toasty, and like I'm really
I'm not gonna.
This is not it. This is not the stuff. Most of the time I'm not. Now, if I want a fizzy cocktail or whatever, maybe I'll put it with some ginger ale. Fine. But 99% of the time, it's like, oh man, give me like, I want something like a Hefeweizen or something that's like, something crisp and refreshing.
Like that banana and clove and the effervescence of that. Yeah.
And I want that, and then I want it cold. I don't want it ice cold, but I want it nice and chilled. Yeah. So it's I live in Florida. It's freaking hot. You walk to your car and you're just sweating already. So you get back and you're like, yeah, I need something cold. And yeah, beer does that. I think better than pretty much anything else, other than peppermint schnapps. But I don't recommend shooting that after working out.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, but it's super interesting.
Yeah,
dude, I actually kind of like the whiskey.
It's not bad.
It's actually pretty good.
I just finished my little glass of the Rabbit Hole, and I was like I held it in my mouth for a little bit. Like, I tried to like hold it in and taste it. Like, it honestly, I think it tastes better after maybe like a minute after you've swallowed it. Because
based on what you're breathing out.
Yeah, because my mouth is kind of like, it's like warm, like kind of caramel, like kind of cinnamony in a way. Like, my mouth is just like, my chest is like warm. Like, it's just kind of like, I almost like the after effect of it as opposed to actually drinking it. Like, I'm like, this is kind of harsh, like drinking it, but after the fact, it's not bad, and it's really enjoyable. Like, definitely a good whiskey. Like, I like bourbons because I just tend to lean towards the sweeter stuff. All right, dude. Well, hey, this was a blast. It was good to talk to you. Tell Jess and Lana we said hi, and we'll talk to you soon.
Carl says hi. All right, sounds good.
All right, see you, dude.